Welcome to Counsel Culture, the Business of Law podcast brought to you by Byfield. Welcome to another episode of Counsel Culture, Byfield's Business of Law podcast. Today we are honoured to welcome Clare Murray, the founder and managing partner of CM Murray, a leading specialist law firm based in London. Coming up to 2 decades of experience as a law firm founder, Clare is recognised as a preeminent expert in partnership and employment law, advising professional service firms, equity partners and senior executives on complex legal issues. Clare's expertise encompasses strategic handling of partner conduct and performance matters, partner exits, team moves, and issues related to discrimination and whistleblowing. Her insights have been instrumental in shaping best practices within the legal industry. Beyond her legal practice, Clare is a thought leader and an advocate for diversity and inclusion, and is the chair of the International Forum of Senior Executive Advisors. She has contributed to various initiatives aimed at promoting equality and has been recognised for her commitment to these values. Hello, Clare.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Nice to be speaking with you today.
It's brilliant to be speaking with you, and I hope that introduction did you justice. I know I could go on for a lot longer than that with all your sort of accolades and experience.
Well, very long, but I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
No problem at all. So I guess just a sort of general introduction to you and your firm. It was established as one of the leading partnership law firms in the UK. What was your motivation for founding a firm, and can you tell us a little bit more about it?
So I think I'd always had a reasonably entrepreneurial vibe. The firm that I was at previously, Fox Williams, which is a fabulous firm, and gave me like a real opportunity to be creative and entrepreneurial. I was there for quite a long time, and then I had breast cancer in my early 30s, and that just makes you revisit kind of what it is you want to do with your life and your career. And I sort of realised that I'd like to set up my own firm. Took a bit of time off after I'd recovered. Wanted to set up my own firm, but that was really built around the things in particular that I loved, kind of partnership, absolutely love it. Employment law, again, love that too. And sort of wanted to be in a boutique where we could place that right at the center of what we were doing. We could be really entrepreneurial, internationally focused, creative, and entrepreneurial, I'd say, was kind of a big focus. And then, we spent the first 10 years mostly being a partnership and employment disputes firm. And then I did something called the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses Program, where they sort of put you on the equivalent of a mini MBA to teach small businesses how to really grow and to fulfill their potential. So then we spent the next nearly decade sort of growing what we're good at and what our clients want us to do for them. So as I say, we went from being partnership and employment disputes to being now partnership, M&A, constitutional work, ABS conversions. If you need a Swiss meringue, we can set one up for you. And across all of that, there's this golden thread of regulation, particularly SRA regulation, but also other areas of regulation. And so that has really been sort of CM Murray 2.0, the last decade that we've really focused on. It's felt really exciting, sort of having a new lease of life. And we've grown. We're now, from being a micro firm, we're now a small firm. We're about 36 in the firm, about 25, 26 legal professionals, all of us doing partnership employment and regulation.
I mean, fantastic. It's incredible. And sort of, as you say, adding that, the layers on top and the golden thread being the regulatory aspect all the way through. I'm sure that you've seen a massive change over the years from when you first started to now, with sort of employment law and regulation too. How have you kind of coped with that sort of, the development? Has it felt did you notice the development as it was happening, or?
Well, I guess as a business and service provider, we benefited from it, tried to anticipate it. And, in terms of what we can help our clients with, in terms of our own internal needs, I mean, there's no question that it is an additional burden, the regulatory burden. If you're not robust enough and profitable enough, it could be overwhelming. Fortunately, we've got a whole regulatory unit kind of with regulatory lawyers who, can give us the confidence as to how to deal with these things, and then can also help us advise clients. But I think it could be, it could be a disincentive these days for people considering setting up a firm.
No, absolutely. I completely agree, and there's so many layers to that. Whether that be from ESG to other laws that are coming in, there's so many arms and legs now. It's hard to find that balance. But in terms of expanding your firm, you've just recently launched your own regulatory unit. So can you kind of elaborate on what its purpose is?
Yeah, well, the genesis of it was that because all of our partnership disputes work, that was generating so much regulatory work, particularly SRA, that we were getting out to really good friends of ours in other firms. But there did just come a point where we just thought, we should do this ourselves, for our clients. And, we brought in Andrew Pavlovich as a partner, and he heads up the team, and he was a brilliant person to build the foundations of the team and, kind of almost show a proof of concept that our clients needed and want regulatory advice, and being able to provide it in such a joined up way, because, we're all in a single open plan office, and you've literally got your employment and your partnership and your regulatory lawyers all sitting together, all sharing sort of experience as well as sort of that expertise. So that was a fantastic start. And then we then had the opportunity, having built that foundation, to bring in Nick Leal, who is a sort of a market leading regulatory lawyer. Excuse me. And he and Andrew are sort of really building that regulatory and professional discipline offering, out. And they mostly focus on the dispute side, the contentious side, so matters, professional discipline matters that go, for example, to the SDT. So, the sort of things that we will typically see will be whether firms who are having to lead investigations into wrongdoing by partners or by lawyers in the team, and where there will be reportable matters to the SRA. So we're advising them on the investigations, but we're also separately advising partners in other firms who have been accused of these things, may have to self-report. It might be something like sexual harassment. It might be a money laundering issue. It could be, an own interest conflict type thing. It's really interesting, but it's the stuff that goes to the core of what it means to be a lawyer, and to be a solicitor in particular. And we just find that fascinating. So Andrew and Nick are doing that contentious side, and then Corin Staves, who's one of our leading partnership lawyers, has a lot of experience on the non-contentious so the regulatory aspects of mergers, etc. And then Beth Hale has got a huge amount of experience in the regulatory aspects for in-house counsel, and so together they've all kind of come together and built this regulatory unit. So ta-da.
Yeah. It's like a little Power Rangers sort of situation. That's what it seems like.
You know what I feel? I sometimes say, and it's half joking, I feel like I built the new Avengers. It's like, but for professional services and their partners, it's like the Avengers, because you've got everything joined up together. It's collaborative. They're market leaders, and they're there to rescue you from whatever problem you've got.
Exactly. I mean, that's such a good way of putting it. That's definitely maybe the title of this podcast for sure. And just to kind of touch a little bit on first of all, I kind of wanted to touch on when you said it's at the core of what being a lawyer is or what being a solicitor is. I find that really interesting. And could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, it sets the the SRA standards and regulations sets the framework for how we conduct ourselves, ethically. And look, you could say that I find it comforting in some respects. I was brought up Catholic, where there's a very clear framework, framework of how to live your life, how to be, gives you a strong sense of morality. And I sort of feel, I might have pushed it back against quite a lot of it and still do, but having that kind of framework of how to live your life and ethics, I find is helpful. And in the same way as a solicitor, having this framework of how to conduct yourself, how to work in a way that's, in the public interest, where we've got a clear set of principles and rules. I just find that's good for the clients. It's good for us. It gives us something to measure ourselves against. It's not always black and white. And as I say, there can be a regulatory burden. Personally, I know that SRA's had a lot of criticism about some of the things that they've done and the ways that they've maybe responded to things like, the IFSEA mints situation. But I think there are some things where they've done well, such as, looking at the way they've tried to affect real change in law firms in the handling of sexual misconduct allegations. I think that overall is positive. It's encouraged firms to actually investigate rather than settling out. It's encouraged people, complainants, victims to come forward. And that, on the flip side, unfortunately, they don't have the resources then to deal quickly enough with the complaints and the notifications that result. So it can then mean for those who are accused, they can be in limbo for 18 months, 2 years, which is tricky, very difficult. Yeah. And then all the stuff that they're doing on workplace culture, I think is really interesting, just to make firms and law firm partners more thoughtful around bullying and harassment in the workplace, and kind of calling it out when you see it, escalating notifications, things like that.
Absolutely. And you yourself have played a really important role in Women and Equalities, the Select Committee inquiry into sexual harassment at work. Can you sort of tell us a bit more about that, and how do you think businesses, including law firms, are doing when it comes to stamping out sexual harassment at work since the Me Too movement started?
Well, that was, I think my role was tiny, but it's the most interesting thing I've ever done in my career. First I was an expert witness, and then I was appointed as the specialist advisor to the Women and Equalities Committee in their sexual harassment in the workplace inquiry, which was for about a year, and that resulted in a whole suite of recommendations. And some of those recommendations are now being brought into law. Most recently, the one relating to the new mandatory duty on employers to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. So that felt like quite a significant moment. It took, from the recommendations back in 2018 to 2024. But and as I say, I was just the advisor to that group. It was, it was a really powerful group of MPs, sort of in this inquiry, sort of recommending and advocating for these changes. But that felt like a really interesting and kind of important inquiry at the time, and something that was very relevant. I think there can be, sometimes when you've been doing this for quite a long time, or even less, you can feel like you become removed from the humanity. It's like there's the law, and you're doing the law, and you're sort of it can become a bit gamified, especially with some advisors. And so that whole Me Too movement and the being involved in that inquiry and the whole ongoing discussions about the impact of NDAs, like the silencing effect of, was just a huge reminder to me and to a lot of lawyers that actually what we do, there is a context and it actually has an impact on people's lives. And you can become quite removed from that if you're not careful. You can, the individuals in those matters can become kind of dehumanized. And so this was a really good reminder, I think, to all advisors about these are human stories that form the basis of this matter on which you're advising. You may never see that person, whether you're advising, especially if you're advising the employer, but it's not a game. It's like real lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think, as you say, I imagine it would be quite a sobering moment as well, to hear, and to sit in on that inquiry. But as you say, quite difficult to kind of, take it all in and realise that, it's not just kind of you're on this side and they're on that side and, almost like you say, a game. It's very, I can imagine it's quite difficult. Moving on, I want to discuss a little bit about IFSEA, the International Forum of Senior Executive Advisors that you are chair of. So I would love for you to tell us a bit about IFSEA and also the big conference that's coming up on the 17th of June, and what we can expect, what the panels will be like, etc.
So we set up IFSEA around about 2019, and we had our first conference then, and it's all focused around the risk, reward, reputation management issues of sort of business leaders, so executives, founders. What we try and do, it's international, so it brings together predominantly professional advisors from around the world who advise people in the C-suite, founders, CEOs, etc., board level directors. And it's also multidisciplinary. So there's a lot of lawyers there, sort of employment, regulatory, criminal, corporate lawyers, but it also brings in tax people, PR advisors. I love a PR aspect, because all of these stories, it's like I was saying before, all of these stories have got like a human aspect to them. And so they're all newsworthy in one way or another. And so it's really important to bring that aspect of reputation management into it. So I love that whole combination. So we try and approach it not as like, these aren't kind of technical legal sessions. These are big picture, geopolitical type topics where we aim to, yes, inform, but we also want to engage. We want to get whole range, like a diversity of perspectives, and we want to, and we also want to entertain. So we sort of try and have sessions which will sort of really get people involved. And sometimes it's the topics that you don't expect that get people sort of throwing their bread rolls kind of into the, but yeah, so a whole range of topics around this sort of risk reward. I guess some of my favorites, our keynote speaker is Matthew Syed, who I'm a proper fangirl of Matthew Syed. And he is talking about dynamic leadership, in a world where so much can be about, like negativity and sort of negative aspect of leadership, so which we will be covering things like, who would want to be a leader now anymore, because you're either going to be burnt out, you're going to be cancelled, or you're going to be sort of rapidly disposed of. It's like, take your pick. Which would you like? That's one of the topics that we're discussing. but he's going to bring some positivity to leadership, dynamic leadership, and diversity. The idea of not just diversity of protected characteristics, sort of ethnicity and gender, etc., but actually just the importance of diversity of perspectives. And that really resonates with the whole of IFSEA, because it's about that diversity of perspectives and what they bring and how you end up with so much more because of that.
It sounds fantastic, especially in terms of, as a leader, there's usually only one of you. So to have something like this, to hear other people's perspectives, and maybe to, not for it to be a therapy session, but to just feel like you're not alone and sharing, hearing other people's perspectives and maybe how they cope with things or how they deal with things. And it sounds great. It sounds, is this... So in the past, has that resonated with you at all? The sort of coming together?
Yeah. So no question. And especially because it's, you can go to some conferences, especially with lawyers who tend to be hyper competitive with each other, just our natural sort of default setting. That this takes away that competition. It's much more sharing and collaborating and exchanging views. And sometimes it can get a bit heated. But equally, it feels like there's quite a lot of adrenaline. There's quite a lot of fun. There's a lot of laughter. So this year is our 6th, and it's our biggest and best yet. And we've got this whole range of topics. We've got a whole session for GCs on sort of ethics. The ethics of being a GC when your client is so close to you. How do you get that distance? How do you deal with your own ethical obligations? Founder fallouts, private equity and professional services. We've got an amazing panel there. Mandatory retirement ages for partners. That's kind of a big topic right now. Lots of firms are looking at their mandatory retirement age if they've got it. It's like, do we need it? What age should it be at? Should it be higher? Should it be removed altogether? So that's very topical. So, so quite big topics. We've got an investigator's dilemma topic. And we've got one that I'm really interested in particular. I'm interested in all. They're all like my babies. But this one in particular is called, it's only a short one. It's called PR and the Hidden Circles of Power and Influence.
Okay.
Right?
That's interesting.
It's about, there's all this talk about getting to the top, kind of, especially for people, for women, for minorities. It's like, you can have all these initiatives, but like the top circles of power are just really closely held. And it's like, how do you get into those circles? How do you increase your chances, maybe by using PR or soft lobbying, things like that? How do you increase your chances of getting into those top leadership positions in circles of power that you don't even know exist, and you don't even really know who's going to make the decisions or have the behind the scenes power?
Yeah. So, I think that would be a great panel to attend. Obviously, as a PR myself, I would love to hear sort of the thoughts and sort of strategy behind that. I think that, some people sometimes forget how important the media is, and that is the main way that people sort of form opinions about things. Obviously, is what they digest. And I think that obviously, again, you could be in an echo chamber when it comes to media. You could be completely on one side and not hear the other side, and but using it to your advantage is crucial. So that's fantastic.
Well, first thing should come, but secondly, like for me, obviously I've been doing this for a long time now, but I'm a girl from the Northeast. I didn't have any connections.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anyone. I didn't have anyone kind of, giving me opening doors, like at the early stages of your career, things like that. And so it's like, and that's me from, relatively speaking, a privileged position, right? what chance do other people have who are working with even more kind of like social mobility disadvantage? It's like what needs to be done, or what they do to really get to those upper circles of power?
Mm-hmm. And to kind of set them apart. And I think especially now with sort of LinkedIn and things like that, you can really set yourself apart and make yourself more noticeable to people that, as you say, you would never be near. Whereas with LinkedIn, you can kind of get in those circles, or people from those circles can see it without you even meaning to, or without them really wanting to. You're there, so it's really interesting. That sounds like a great discussion.
What do you, as a PR person, what do you find sort of most, for your clients, most impactful to help them build individual profiles?
I think it's so dependent on the partner. And how they want to be viewed. I think that some are very, some it could be being in front of, the legal press and amongst their peers. I think some it's, sort of the thought leadership, maybe in a trade press, that's where they would like to be respected, or maybe with their clients. I think the main for an individual profile that's going to boost you the most would be something like LinkedIn. I think that's where you can really find the notoriety quite fast. It takes a while, but I can think of a few partners in my head who have cracked it and are, is it a LinkedIn influencer? But, you say their name and people know immediately who they are, what they do and what their practice is. So I would say that was probably the best one for individual profile raising. But it depends how much you want to put yourself online. Some people
a lot of people, especially more sort of senior people, are reluctant to do that, or maybe just haven't built up the confidence to do it. But do you think that you can teach a more senior kind of like lawyer who wants to build their profile, maybe, or increase it in a particular areas? And do you think that you can teach them even at a more senior level?
I think so. I think that there's beauty in being yourself online and not being too sort of reserved, because there's something great about people knowing your personality. It's what makes people attractive. It is what will make you stand out, and a client will potentially choose you because you seem approachable, you have that humanity to you instead of a face and your accolades, which is fantastic. But if you have that personable sort of air about you online, it could really stand you instead. So I think it would just be about teaching that person the benefits of being yourself, which sounds a bit cheesy, but
oh my god, come on, we're lawyers.
Yeah, I know, boring, but just kind of letting that drop a little bit. And there's a lot of benefits to sort of dropping that serious, professionalism. Not to say that you have to be doing anything silly online or dancing around on LinkedIn, but I think that would help. And even what's great as well is sort of talking about your experiences that you've had, especially if you are a bit more senior. Like, I've been there, this is how it felt at the time, this is where I am now, sort of thing. I think that's really helpful and really interesting. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's interesting. So the one final thing about the IFSEA conference that I'm actually really excited about is, and again, it shows the diversity of approach and look at things from different perspectives. And the opening night, we've got drinks, and at those drinks, we've got an author, Michael Cordy, who writes high concept thrillers. But he started out in this profession as a branding and advertising specialist, and then after 10 years, he then stopped to write a novel, which then became a New York Times bestseller and then sold to Hollywood. It's like every sort of wannabe writer's dream. And it's like, so in the US, it was called The Miracle Strain. And in the UK, it was called The Messiah Code. But anyway, it was really, really good. And he's just got a new book, which is another sort of high concept thriller called Manhattan Down, which is doing really, really well, like with critical reviews. And he's going to come and talk about the power of storytelling in business and in life. So, I'm really looking forward to that.
Wow.
So I'll be sort of interviewing him briefly, and we've got some copies of his books that he's going to be signing and giving out to attendees and things like that.
Oh, wow. Amazing. And I guess, well, especially if you're listening to this and you're a fan, etc., then it sounds like a great opening night. Sometimes they could be a bit dull, so it's nice to have someone to be there and kind of, a focus point that's so interesting. Yeah, that sounds great.
It's really fun. He's a really interesting and fun guy. We try and make these events like entertaining and engaging, and you want them to be fun. It's like, otherwise, why would you be there?
Yeah, I know, exactly. I completely agree with you on that. Oh, brilliant. But yeah, I have another question here about sort of why you got involved in the City of London Comms Committee for CLSC. And again, we've kind of touched on it, but what are your sort of main aims for this committee?
So it's the City of London Solicitors Company is the livery company for solicitors working in the city, that's in private practice or in-house. And I was encouraged to become a member of the company, like as a junior lawyer, like a few years ago. And then I sort of made my way to become a member of the livery. And then I sort of had sort of an unofficial mentor in the form of Sarah De Gay, who's this absolutely wonderful woman who was the most recent past master of the company and was former GC at Slaughter and May, and she's made it her business to sort of promote and support women in the city generally, and also sort of within the company. So then the current master, Ed Parker, asked me if I would like to chair this communications committee, which I think it had been resting for a while, and I wasn't entirely sure what I was letting myself in for, but basically it was a committee where we could kind of mostly start again. So we built this through just the enthusiasm of members, new members. We've reached out and said, look, who really loves being involved in communications and loves everything related to being a city solicitor or advising city solicitors. So we've got this amazing, talk about diversity of thought and experience, this amazing committee now, which is full of a range of people with different experiences and seniority through to, we've got solicitor advocates, a range of experience. We've got solicitor apprentices and paralegals, and actually they are probably have the biggest impact because they've got tremendous enthusiasm, they've got ideas, they sort of don't know like the boundaries that just come with when you've been in the legal profession for a number of years, and just those sort of rigid boundaries start to come in around you. They're unencumbered, so they just have great ideas. They're like, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And it's brilliant. So it's about promoting the company, growing the membership, showing what brilliant initiatives that the company's involved in. So a whole range of things like sports. They've sort of rebooted all the sports teams, which is great. I've got members of our firm who are involved. And
I was going to say, are you a member of any of the teams?
Not, but two of my colleagues, Liz Pearson and Mitchell Blythe, are both on the football teams, and they are both sort of very involved. Liz is a bit of a goal scorer, But there's a whole range of others. There's not backgammon, bridge, there's shooting, there's netball. Yeah, there's like a whole range of activities. And then there are different initiatives as well. There's an initiative called Lucky Girls, which is a series of initiatives supporting younger women professionals coming into the legal sector. And that is brilliant. That's led by Sarah De Gay as part of her kind of empowering women focus. And there's a whole Pride initiative going on this month. And a range of other things. There was so your colleague Sean Cullen jointly led a really, really interesting social media-led initiative a couple of months ago focused on the Rights of Women charity. And because he's a volunteer member of the committee, and another of our committee members, Tammy Belling, came up with this. It was like a 14-day charitable social media campaign, which resulted in about £6,500 being raised for the charity from sort of donations and matching from the company. So, yeah.
Wow. Fantastic. And in terms of the communications aspect, how are you finding that in your own PR way?
I sort of enjoy it. I think we have an opportunity to. I am very informal in my communications. I'm maybe sometimes too authentic, but look, the company is obviously been going for a long time. And within it, there's a lot of fun and there's a lot of love for the company. And I think we just have this opportunity within the communications committee to sort of communicate just that sort of love and community and opportunity. And all the great things that are going on, and to reach out to sort of the next generation of lawyers.
It sounds very fulfilling and very fun, as you say, and full of sort of encouragement, which is something that you need, especially in a job that is so demanding. It's nice to have that sort of outlet and feel like you have a network. And I think it's easier sometimes to say you're going to do something, or, we do this and we do that, but to actually, kind of do it and have that committee there it's great. So yeah, amazing. It's amazing. The work that you're doing is great.
Thank you. And what I love is the fact that we brought in all these fabulous people, and now there's this amazing woman called Joanna Hughes, who is, probably the lead advocate in the UK for solicitor apprenticeships, and she's now deputy chair of the committee, which is amazing. So it feels like we've gone from being, let's say, dormant about 9 months ago to this really vibrant committee that I think now has a life of its own, that I can hopefully step back and let it sort of just go to the next level.
Flourish. Well, I mean, as I say, it's you're doing a lot of incredible things, whether that be, in law or sort of adjacent to law. I mean, I'm really excited to sort of hear about the IFSEA forum and the conference that's coming up. I can't wait. And I mean, it's been a pleasure to talk to you today. So
me too.
Thank you very much for joining me.
I've really enjoyed it so much. Thank you.
You've been listening to Counsel Culture, the Business of Law podcast brought to you by Byfield. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and join us again next week, where we'll be discussing some more of the biggest stories in the legal sector.